Well, welcome back, and welcome back, Ben Hayden. How you doing,
Hello,
Ben?
Bill. I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm very well. I resisted Mark Jones's suggestion that we should call this the Bill and Ben show. Uh, I think we might get hit for copyright or something, you know.
Well, I'm sure Mark will put it on every week anyway.
Yeah. So, are you busy, Ben?
Yeah, we're very busy at the minute. A lot of people call us about how to reduce their electricity bills and look at different options to manage their electric better. It's there's a lot of people, a lot of uncertainty going on, and looking forward. People just want to see a bit of hope, really, that we can sustain the lifestyle we live now, but keep the fuel costs down.
Yeah, it's not getting better just yet, is it, Ben?
No,
I've got this graph that I'll show people just to demonstrate exactly what's been happening. And it looks a bit complicated, but actually it's not. This is looking at, uh, well, these were the prices. The blue line were the prices last year, obviously going up to December, which was when we started to feel it, wasn't it?
yeah,
And these are the prices for this year up until the 19th of February, which is still sitting pretty high, around 200 euros per kilowatt, megawatt hour, is it, per megawatt hour?
yeah,
And yeah, it's gone down, it's gone higher. But if you compare this here, um, this here with the prices at this time last year, my goodness, they're still 3 or 4 times higher, aren't they?
yeah, definitely. I mean, this if you look over, we had a bit of a cold winter, didn't we? I think even down in the southern part of Spain, we had a cold winter. So we used a lot of energy trying to heat the houses, cook your food, all everything we was doing. So now with the summer months coming in, hopefully we'll have a good few months of people not asking for the supply from the network, which then
Yeah,
that does reduce the cost of the
sure.
electric. Is that supply and demand? So I don't know what will happen again at the end of the year, but hopefully throughout the summer now, if we can resist the heat and cooling ourselves down too much, I think we can manage our electric a lot better.
But you've said right from the beginning, Ben, that the biggest costs that most householders have are heating and cooling.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
And we've got a beautiful day today. But there have been some days where we've sat down to lunch in the afternoon, and it's like, no, it's cold. We're putting the heating on. Today's a beautiful day, so there's no heating on. There's no cooling on. If we could keep this temperature all
Yeah,
year long,
yeah. It would save us a few quid, wouldn't it?
it would indeed. And I don't want to say this, Ben. We've had a conversation about it, but I don't want to say this to get people to change suppliers right at this moment, because I think, as you've said very clearly, just bouncing about from supplier to supplier can end up actually being costly for you. But
Definitely, yeah.
I was very surprised at how low our bills were. Um, I mean, I think our last bill was about 60 euros, which I was expecting it to have been much higher than that. But then again, and heating and cooling. Well, we're going to be talking about this. We have solar panels for hot water, so I
Yeah,
mean, at 21 something, a bottle of gas, which is how we used to heat our hot water, we'd be spending easily 40 euros a month just on hot water.
yeah.
And we invested a few years ago in pellet stoves, which are, I mean, for me, they're just fantastic. You've got the
Fantastic.
flame, everything. And the price of a bag of pellets hasn't gone up in the last 4 years, 5 years. It was a little bit more expensive last year, but this year it's gone back down again. And one bag of pellets lasts us about 3 or 4 nights.
Brilliant.
Um, so we've scored. I think that's why our electricity bill has not been particularly high compared to people who are using electricity for, as you say, heating and cooling. Yeah,
Yeah. I think you've done it right there, though, Bill. Like you say, you've got your two main things covered. You can heat your hot water and you can heat your home. Those
yeah,
two there are massive costs, and the bigger the house, the bigger the costs are going to be. But if you can manage it with these type of systems, you're saying, pellets, solar thermal, it definitely will reduce your bill. It's a great investment to look at. Coming up the next, I don't know whether we're going to be any different within the next 2 years. with the work that needs doing to reduce the bills.
Sure,
It's scary times, and I think that if people can look at and they've got some investment there to put into something like something that heats or can contribute to cooling your home cheaper than what they do now is definitely what to look at.
sure, sure.
And you're
Okay.
proof of that, Bill. You're proof of that. That's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, well, it was one of these things. I'm terrible with bank accounts and things. I have to get Vicky to go and look at them. can I can never remember. I don't save these passwords and things onto my computer, and I can never remember what's the username and what's the password. So I'll let Vicky do it. And when she was looking into it last week, I was sort of holding my breath, waiting to see what it was going to
Yeah,
be. But I think having spared the cost of heating and spared the cost of heating hot water, um, I guess, I mean, what do we use? Fridges. We've got LED lights everywhere in the house. We've got a washing machine, which Vicky tries to use in the lower, the lower bands, And I found out that the lowest rate, Ben, wait for this, is between 4 and 5 in the morning.
got to get up early. Early bird catches the worm, Bill.
Yeah, I know, I know. But
But the
then
things
if you're up at 4 in the morning, you need to heat the place, and it's gonna cost you more money.
you better get the pellets out then. I think that's the point though. When I keep saying about the supply and demand issue, that it's always going to be on in peak moments is the time everyone, like they say when EastEnders used to come on, everyone puts the kettle on, to sit down with a cup of tea. That's the peak time that the use is needed, and the cost is just going to go sky high. So
Yeah,
it's the battle we're in. It's the
I
battle
know,
we're in.
I know. So, Ben, you want to talk about solar thermal power, yeah?
Definitely, yeah,
And
yeah. I think
and
it's
this is for really heating water, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's something that people see a lot and don't really know what it is. And when I say
Right,
about solar thermal, they still don't understand quite what I mean. But solar thermal is about heating hot water. Basically, is your immersion tank.
right,
How do you get your hot water? Solar thermal provides a great way to heat your water. I mean, it gets really hot, very hot. It's a great alternative to having to draw from the grid, keeps your consumption down, and you get the power from the sun again. It's a very
right,
simple, easy setup to do. It doesn't take up a massive room, but does look big on your house. We are
yeah,
talking, it is a big bit of kit, but it's
yeah,
not like solar panels are. This is a great alternative if you don't want to invest as much money, but just want to heat the water. You've got a large household, maybe.
right,
Sometimes these are great options to look at where your consumption is, where you're using your power. Because if you want to invest just solely in solar electricity, are you relying on all of your, sorry, let me start again. Is all your consumption coming from heating the property, or is it from somewhere else? Well, if it's from heating it, maybe look at a different option, different systems,
right,
because to
okay.
conquer that consumption, especially.
So I take it. I mean, I guess a lot of people live in apartments. I guess that they've got some kind of immersion heater in general. That would be a pretty standard, would it, Ben?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, pretty much every apartment going to have some sort of immersion. Um,
Are these expensive to run in general?
they're supposed to be not, but they are. They contribute again to the cost of the bill. So if you look at it individually, it's not. But when you have it on 24/7, and you need it on 24/7 because it keeps the temperature right. You can turn them on and off, but the input of power then you need to heat the water again.
Right. Okay.
It's it it doesn't really work out in the end. But with the
I,
solar thermal for like Villa or something like that, it has the sun on it constantly with antifreeze going round, and it provides that heat exchange that you need,
right.
which is cost efficient.
Yeah. Right. A few questions about this. I mean, we do have them. We're very fortunate that we live in the countryside, so we're not in a community or anything, and basically nobody gives a toss what we do for the house. And we've got these two big panels on the roof. I have to be honest and say that they're not. pretty because they're angled
Yeah,
at the right angle, and they stand up like a bit of a sore thumb. And there's a very big immersion tank behind that as well, which you don't really see. Yeah, they're not the prettiest looking things, but you know, for us, it doesn't really matter. How complicated does it become, Ben? Well, there's a number of things. First of all, if you're in an apartment, you know, how important is the orientation of the apartment for you to be able to make the most of that? And secondly, you know, we've talked about people who rent apartments,
yeah, yeah.
and they obviously are not going to invest, you know, several thousand euros to put this in and leave it for the landlord, are they?
No, I think I think with the apartments are concerned. Obviously, if they don't have a space to put the solar thermal on, or even a few solar panels to contribute to your consumption, it's all to do with managing that electricity. I do have other ways using battery systems, and the battery systems will. It's like a smart battery system, so it will work out how you live your life when you put the kettle on, when you put your hair straighteners on, all of that sort of stuff. And what it will do
Yeah.
is buy the electric and off peak and feed it from the battery on peak.
All
That's in
right.
an apartment. It's the only real way that you're going to look to save money, as well as putting in cheaper to run appliances. But the cost in that is, you know, is pretty high as well compared to what you get back. So in an
Right.
apartment, people are pretty stuck, you know, to be honest with you. But if they can the way they're doing things a bit different, maybe save a bit of money in the future. But the main focus is on people who've got space to be able to self-generate, or even in an apartment block, is to work as a community. I know there's special subsidies going out at the moment that can help as a community. If you live in a small apartment block, where, you know, we install solar for them and it feeds the whole block. But there's obviously a lot of complications in that, a lot of work that needs to go in, just to get the
Right.
yes from certain people, so people back away from it.
Yeah, I've one or two people have contacted me and have asked about this within their communities, and some people are for it, and some people are against it. And you know, the problem is that not everybody lives there all the time. You know,
Yeah,
and they think, well, you know, why should I invest in, I don't know, well, let's just say it's for hot water, for hot water, for the 2 or 3 months a year that we come and stay here, you know, and
but it's got to increase the price of the value though of the property as well, hasn't it? You know, if you're
yeah,
having that system installed and you want to even to rent it out, people will know that, oh well, you know, we're generating some electricity, or consuming less
yeah,
electricity, should we say. So it is a massive plus. It is a massive plus.
yeah,
And over the next 5 years, there's going to be a massive shift in this,
mm,
a massive shift in the way that there already is with the way that properties are built. They have to be
mm,
a percentage of self-sufficient. And looking at older properties, I think this is going to come more and more. You know, people are
right,
going to see this more and more, that there's going to be looking at different ways. And with the urbanisations, the thing I will say is that we do put a lot of pressure onto the urbanisation. If I have a client who comes to us about installing solar panels, and they want to know, well, they want to know the ins and outs, don't they? The
right,
urbanisations.
yeah,
Well, I'm there and I'll provide them the ins and outs answers to whatever they want, you know, and keep providing that pressure to say to them that in the next year, in the next 2 years, they will be folding anyway, because the government will put the pressure on them because of the sky high prices. Again, the supply
right,
and demand. If you've got a villa or an apartment block that's generating some of their electricity, or their hot water, or consuming less electricity, then that puts less pressure onto the grid, which will definitely reduce the price in the fuels, and that's what the government need to do.
yeah. Yeah, because the thing is, Ben, yeah, there's obviously people are using immersion heaters. It's expensive, but as I say, before we put the solar panels in, we had a gas boiler outside with two butano uh,
Yeah.
tanks connected to it, and really at this time of the year they didn't last all that long, you
Mm.
know, and and they
They're
always
heavy. They would,
they
just the
always
whole thing with them
you
is hard
always
work.
ran out at 7 o'clock in the morning when you're going to work, and you put the
Yeah.
shower on and you think, ah. So you're sort of running out in your pajamas, on a cold winter morning. Like, it can get pretty cold here. Changing over tanks, and it's a nightmare. But we still use gas for cooking.
Yeah,
We bought a new uh, bottle of gas this week, and I forgot what Vicky said it cost us. It was like 21.70 or something.
yeah,
It was very expensive. And for cooking, that doesn't matter because that'll last us for 6 months.
yeah, definitely. The same with me. I'm the same, Bill. Yeah,
But if people have even gas for heating their water, they're going to notice the hike in price, aren't they?
yeah, definitely. Like you say, there with the reliability, you've always got to have another gas bottle there to change over. It's not a nice experience picking up a gas bottle. It's
Yeah.
definitely not.
We've got a message for Bill and Ben here from Mark. As an old electronics engineer, we'll provide photovoltaic panels, rely on just nice sun, or is hotter sun more efficient? So do they just rely on sort of light and sun, or do photovoltaic produce more electricity the hotter the sun is? How?
So the difference between the photovoltaic and the solar thermal, which is they're
Right,
both solar, so they both heat from the sun, but the solar thermal works on a liquid as a heat exchange. The
right,
photovoltaics, as it happens, apparently in Spain now where we are is the best climate for photovoltaic, and it has a number of reasons to do with that. Is if you was to take them into the desert as such, they wouldn't work as well as what they would here because it'd be cooler here. So there's a number of factors which will make solar panels work at the best efficiency. But even if you have, say, 1,000 watt solar panel, you'll never generate that thousand watt. You'll generate a percentage of it depending on the climate and where you are, the angle of the solar panel. There's many factors that go into the
yeah,
design of a system. It's not just, oh, that's you use X amount on your bill, so we recommend a 4 kilowatt system. Well, that's completely wrong. You need to go back to the fundamentals, like what Mark's saying there, of how it works, and that will work on heat, light, angle, a
yeah,
lot of things, shade. There's a lot to do with the positioning of the panels,
right.
depending where some properties. I've had people ask us to move the panels. Well, we've recommended it as well, to move the panels so they can generate more electric because they've just not been
Yeah.
put in the optimum position. And on the roof isn't always the optimum position. You can
No.
find a nice area which might be a lot better suited.
Yeah, well, I mean, but for us, so the panels don't look all that pretty on the roof, but
Yeah,
it means that they're starting to catch the sun from the moment it comes up in the morning, and they're still catching the sun
definitely.
the moment it goes down at night. So, it's a small price to pay, I think, for
Oh, I think
getting
so.
that kind of constant, access to the sun.
Yeah,
Okay, well, we're going to go back thanks, Mark. We're going to go back to the solar thermal. Ben, I want to ask you about something. So we've got panels. We've got two big panels up there. Um, and oh yeah, okay. Before I ask that question, Vicky's asking about photovoltaics. Do they still work on cloudy days?
they will do, but they won't be anywhere near as efficient. So this is what I say with being recommended like a four. So we'll just talk about a 4 kilowatt system. That
Yeah,
system would have been designed off your electricity bill. To recommend how much you're going to need. The
right.
problem is they're never going to generate that. So this again, then with the cloudy days, all needs to be taken into consideration of the investment you're putting it into, because if you have a bad year with clouds, or even like with the UK have a lot of solar in, but it won't generate as much as like Spain will.
You'll get, for example, a percentage of the kilowatt power
Yeah,
from these, depending on the amount of light and sun. So I guess with sunlight, they will generate something, even on a cloudy day, but nothing like the potential that they're putting
definitely.
it there for.
Definitely
Right.
nothing at the point of what they're sold at either, Bill. They're sold as a
Okay.
complete ultimate efficiency when they're not. You
Right.
need to. There's a lot of many factors into you might think, oh, that's a massive system that they need. But when you look at what they can generate and in the angles they want to put the panels, that's
Right.
might be what's needed. So is it viable? You know,
Yeah.
it's not
So,
viable for every property.
the question I was going to ask you about solar thermal, but we had a friend who had a system on his terrace. Now, it was for hot water, but it wasn't panels. It looked like a kind of like one of these radiator things that you have for your towels in the bathroom.
Well, that's
Um,
basically how it works, like that as a heat exchange. You know, so the heats onto the liquid which is inside the tubes, and that goes round and heats the water up. So
right,
as long as you can get the heat there,
right.
that will then work as a heat exchange into the water.
So there are possibilities for other types of systems, maybe for smaller spaces,
Definitely.
and
And moving forward, it's all coming. You know, within the next probably couple of years, we're going to see a lot more different systems where on the side of a wall, for instance, like you're saying, it will look like a radiator, and them
yeah,
systems will be used to either heat water, where if it's looking
yeah,
like a radiator with liquid in it, that will heat the water, and then smaller panels with higher wattage for to produce your electricity. But the problem is
right,
space at the minute. We cannot get things small enough to make things
right,
viable.
yeah. And Vicky's determined to get us back to the photovoltaic. Um, do they work with
Yeah.
ultraviolet rays on cloudy days? The photovoltaic systems.
Photovoltaics will, yeah. I mean, if you look at England, I don't think it ever has a sun out, and they still, you know, people still buy them and invest in them there, and they will work, but you just will not get that efficiency.
Yeah,
What worries me is people have sold a 10 kilowatt system, for instance, and that's not what it is really. It's probably I don't know 70% of that, and
right.
that's the worry that I think people need to understand, that
Yeah.
it's not as efficient as what they think.
Listen, I stayed in a small village in Scotland for a number of years before I came out to Spain, and there was a couple across the road that had panels on their roof for hot water in Scotland.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and the problem was you're saying about there's gel or something in them, and they had to put antifreeze in it, so
That the antifreeze is in all of them. To be honest with you, we put antifreeze in them.
I
Yeah,
think they had to top theirs up every year in Scotland.
but that again, it's that shift there that I think people are going to know a lot more about these different ways to
Yeah,
provide their energy for their house, and in any position, as long as it's designed right, it's going to be beneficial. But it just
yeah.
needs to be clear of what is achievable and the design of it.
Right. So for the solar panels, Ben,
Yeah,
are we really more dependent on the heat from the sun to heat the panels and to heat the water going through this heat exchange within it?
correct.
Uh,
Yeah,
so
the
solar panels are not really going to do
thermal.
very much if it's cold or if it's really overcast, are they?
Correct. Yeah. So that's the difference with the solar thermal will work off the heat basically, when the
Right.
panels won't, but they'll work off the UV, which is it can be better depending on where you are, and it's again the positioning is everything.
Right.
The design is needs to be right to make sure that they work as efficiently as they can, because you could have a massive system installed. And it's completely wrong. You would
Yeah.
have been better off with a smaller system in the right area
Right.
to work better.
Yeah, so coming back to, if people have villas and whatever, and they've got a big garden and there's lots of possibilities where you can locate panels for let's just talk about the hot water at the moment. Um, there's, fewer problems there. Yeah, if it's a big villa, then you might need to have more panels or whatever. But coming back to people who are living in apartments and, is it more cost effective, Ben? Let's just say there are 6 apartments in this block. Would it be more cost effective per household if there was a system that could be installed for, the 6 households?
Yes, yeah, but there's a lot that goes into this. It's better for a communal area. If you've got an apartment block, maybe it's got a pool, It's got essential supplies. That's when it really comes into it. But to feed each house the cost side of it. I don't think's there yet. You know, it needs to work as the community, should I say?
Right.
That's the way they're going to work the best.
Yeah. So if these six apartment owners got together and had a system installed that would serve all of the houses, that would be more cost effective than each one installing an individual system in their own apartment. Then.
I'd need to see it, to be honest with you, to give you a clear answer. To give you a clear answer, I need to do. You know,
Yeah.
there's a bit of work that needs to go in there, but I think that there's always an option. And what would be great is if the communities and the urbanisations come together and started the ball rolling. You know,
Right.
it definitely is a foot in the right direction. Like I said, if somebody comes to me and says they're urbanising and said no to solar, well, I start jumping up and down and then trying to put pressure on them to say in a year's time, in 2 years' time, you're going to have to
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah.
it'd be good for the urbanisations to take that leap and say, right, this is what we're doing as a community, rather than having everyone put in applications and they get refused and they have me there and all of this going on. It's much better, I think, if the
Yeah.
urbanisations can just swallow it and just say, right, something needs to
Yeah,
be done
well,
now.
we used to have an apartment a number of years ago, just on the outskirts of La Cala, and it wasn't a new one of the new developments. Been there a few years, and they had solar hot water, which actually meant that everyone in the building got
Yeah.
basically free hot water.
You see it a lot, Bill. You do. You see, you know, it is good.
But they had to have in the basement. They had to have a big sort of I don't know, some kind of pumping system and
Yeah.
various things. You know, there were more bits to it to serve the whole block than we would have, for example, here
Oh,
in
by
in
far. And
the house.
this is why it gets complicated, Bill, with urbanisations. Is you need to look at the system and what they're doing, because it's not just a case of installing a system and then it's X amount of money. We've then
Yeah,
got to work out what it needs to feed the best way, and
yeah,
keep essential supplies. It's all about, with an urbanisation or any big building, any big office block, any big industrial warehouse or manufacturers, it's about essential supplies and keeping them reduced as low as possible. So that way, then your overheads, your day-to-day needs, when if we have COVID back or any of the other stuff going on goes wrong, what do you need to keep on every day to maintain that building? Because if you start turning things off, even in a house, as we know, when people come back, it's just not working again. You go to turn it on, it doesn't work again, because things need
right,
to be operated. They need to have the moisture pushed out of them. Things need to be operated. Like with water, can't have water sitting at the bottom. Everything needs to be moving around and
moving. Yeah,
flowing. And
yeah.
that's what I mean with the essential supplies, that even if somebody has an apartment block or apartment that they're not in, they need to understand that to keep things running. Otherwise, you will end up with problems later on down the line. And what's the cheapest way to do that?
And another thing, Ben, we need to remember that we are in Spain.
Yeah,
and and basically, you can't you can't change your floor tiles without a license.
yeah.
And so,
But
it isn't the case that you can just, get one of these kits and just stick it on your house, is it?
no, it all depends again where you are. Like I say, with the urbanisation, with the rules and regulations, where they are. And I always ask the customer to find out as much information as they can,
Right.
because they
Okay.
live there, they've been dealing with it, and we'll assess each property and go from there. But again, I think a big thing to say is that over the next couple of years, they're going to be forced into this situation. So, do they want to help now and look willing, or do they just want to keep being? I can't really say what I want to say, to be
Yeah.
fair, but they need to be. People need to show willing. If you're
Go
going to
on,
save
Ben.
people money and enhance their lifestyle, that's the way. The
Yeah.
people have got to fold and not have that attitude of no. We just say no. The computer says no. Well, hang on a minute. This is a massive. We're not talking about the extension. We're not talking about something, new floor tiles. We're talking about the cost of living. People choose whether they
Yeah.
want food or energy. That's where we're at. So
Yeah.
don't play God with them, basically.
Yeah. But do you see us, Ben, having to really rethink the way we use energy in general? You know, people buy an apartment that they've got, and I'm not knocking this at all, but they've got, air conditioning systems with heat pumps, and it's like, oh, that's great. We've got cold, we've got hot. They've got their immerser heater for the hot water. I mean, oh, that's great. Everything's sorted there. You know, do you think that gradually we're going to have to start rethinking both the heating and the cooling, whether it's heating actually like for fires and things, or the heating for water?
I think with apartments, especially the technology that's coming through now, and is it's getting better and better and better. You're able to provide a smaller energy efficient system, but
Right,
the main focus with say a smaller apartment is it's quite small. You've got it's sufficient for what you need, shall we say? With
right,
people with bigger properties, that's where the issue is with people with who need extra rooms or need to heat a whole big area. When I live in an apartment and
mhm,
I have one, I shut the doors and I heat one room. That's where
yeah,
we live.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's how I manage my bills to keep them down. When some people can't do that, they've got an open plan apartment, say, which they
yeah,
can't shut the doors, and that's a massive problem. I lived in France before we come here. We've got a house over in France, and the stairway goes up, so it's all open. So
right,
the heat from the fire comes out straight upstairs into nothing. So the missus didn't like this, but we put a big plastic like sheeting
screen, yeah,
to keep the heat in because I was over forever out there chopping bloody wood. It was a nightmare. So that's I think it's the thought of how your house is as well. Where how can you keep that heat in? How can we insulate the property to?
right,
And I mean that's something I definitely want to go into on another show is the insulation of properties because
right,
that's a big part of keeping that energy that you've already spent your money on enclosed in one area.
yeah. Well, that's something we can pick up, Ben, and we can talk about, what we can do to prevent heat loss and
Definitely, yeah,
to make that more efficient. I put your email up there, Ben at litelectricians.com. And I know that you've been out to visit people, Ben, who've contacted you about their bills. Some friends of ours who have a small business and a bakery,
yeah.
and 3,500 euro, their last bill. I mean,
It,
that's crippling, isn't it?
It is, and I mean, and I've said this a lot. People come out here with a dream, so they save their money, invest it in their dream, and then it gets taken away from them because of something that's politics or supply and demand, everything that's involved, and it's not right.
Yeah.
It's not right.
Okay, Ben, thank you so much. Penny Kennedy's been listening in. Thank you, Penny. I hope you found this useful. We will be back in 2 weeks' time, Ben, and we'll pick up
Brilliant.
some of these other issues. I'll let you decide which one you want to look at next. But I certainly think the insulation issue is one thing that we can explore a bit.
Yeah.
Ben, have a very good rest of the week.
Brilliant. Will do, you too, Bill, and I'll speak
And
to you soon.
we'll catch up in 2 weeks' time and see what's happening with these prices, okay?
Fantastic, fantastic. Speak to you soon. Take care.
And you take care now, Ben. Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks for joining in.
Thank
And
you.
I will be live tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And keep you posted on what I'm going to be looking at tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye bye. Bye, Ben.
Bye.